Welcome to another episode of Axe of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey. Joining me, as always, my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
I just have to finish this thought. My brother made up a parody of the Brady Bunch song where it was like, and one day when the lady met this fellow, and boy, they did the wrong thing in bed. And I thought that was really funny, even though not really related. Anyway, hi. We were just talking about the Brady Bunch before we started. This is why you should be part of the pre-show.
It's a little late for April Fools, but that would be a good... We're now a Brady Bunch podcast for everybody over...
We're pivoting the Brady Bunch.
For all of you over 35 who know what the heck that is.
Hi.
Also joining me is my equally lovely co-host, Eric Van Allen.
We also have to remind folks that this is also a Gilligan's Island pod and a 3-hour pod. 3-hour pod.
That's the song, the Cyberpunk pod, yeah.
Yeah, that's our cyberpunk pantheon, the 3-hour pod.
That's what we're here for, referencing television shows from the television sitcoms from the 1970s.
It's the Winter Soldier activation phrase for somebody out there.
No Nintendo Switch 2 combo, folks. We're just talking about the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island, episode by episode, whether you like it or not. And finally, also joining us for, I believe, the first time, is Brian Shea from the newly revived Game Informer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I think this is actually my second time, but it was also like two years ago that I was on or something.
Maybe I wasn't here.
I was going to say, I think Brian might have guessed it when you were gone, because I checked this when I first reached out to Brian. I was like, we've had Brian on the show before. I know we have, but it was like a while ago, so it might have been a cat absent week.
So I was
when I was out getting cigarettes and I came back and I'm like, who's this guy?
Cigarettes and milk.
This cousin Oliver.
I understand that reference. Brian's here because he got a chance to play the Nintendo Switch 2 not too long ago. And that's great because we're going to be talking about all of the news from the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal, including the price, the RPGs, the games revealed. Is the Switch 2 the next 3DS? We'll be discussing all of that, as well as the return of Game Informer, From Software's new PvP multiplayer game, and lots more over the course of the pod. Very exciting. It's a big one, folks. We'll get to all of that in a moment, but if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Patreon.com/BloodGodPod. $5 a month will get you access to the premium version of our newsletter written by the one and only Nadia Oxford, and also get you the access to the show ad-free. We also have a Pantheon episode live, our Cyberpunk 2077 deep dive with Natalie Flores. Really good stuff. Go check it out. It's live now to our $10 patrons. Lots more bonus content as well if you subscribe. And we got an amazing Discord. We just did a watch of Freeren over on the Discord, episodes 9 and 10. Really good anime. Really digging it so far. So just come hang out with lots of anime and RPG nerds. It's a very wholesome community. It's really fun to be in. Okay. Without further ado, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. Real roller coaster week for Nintendo and the world, so to speak. Yeah, the Nintendo's just trapped on this wild ride with the rest of us.
They want to get off their Bones wild ride. This was Kat, you and I have seen a lot of console reveals, a lot of console launches. I think this is probably the wildest one I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
I don't know about that. I think we just live in such a supercharged era that people are inevitably going to get mad about everything. But the conversation right now is around the price, and it's going to continue to be around the price because Nintendo initially announced that the Switch 2, the newly upgraded version of the Nintendo Switch, would be $450, with digital games being $80 and physical games being $90. But wait! Donald Trump on that same day rolled out tariffs impacting basically every country, including islands that literally only have penguins. It's pretty wild. Those penguins are getting tariffed into oblivion.
I fish.
The president of the United States watching Madagascar. We gotta tax those penguins.
I think he was confused. He was actually watching the one with Colin Farrell on HBO.
Yeah.
Like, something's got to be done about this guy.
Well, unfortunately, that included 46% tariffs on Vietnam, and that's where the Nintendo Switch 2 is manufactured. So, pre-orders were initially in the US set for April 9th, my birthday. Wow.
Oh, happy birthday.
But then Nintendo announced that pre-orders in the US, they stay the same in Canada and UK. Congratulations, Nadia.
Thank you.
Will be no longer happening in the US on April 9th as they reconsider the price. It's a big one. That means that it could be a lot more expensive. Maybe
we have no idea.
$600.
Nobody has any idea.
It's a lot.
I want to point out a thing amidst all this is that during the Direct, they did not state the price. It only came out afterwards as pages started to go live. And so I think originally there was some hubbub, some rumors, some speculation that was maybe a response to, oh, they don't want to say the price because the price is like bad. They don't want to say it out loud. Historically, I think if that was true, then Sony wouldn't have gotten up on a stage and pointed at the PS3 the way they did. But now I think with the benefit of hindsight, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that decision making came from a place of things could change very rapidly, and we don't want to have a YouTube video with a price mark that we would later have to deal with. And maybe a prescient move overall, honestly. And I think, Nadia, you were right that Nintendo is now between a rock and a hard place. That they are making a higher end Switch. And there's a degree of it's going to cost probably a little bit more money no matter what. It is from what sounds like a more robust version of the Switch. But also, the state of the world means that it's really difficult to sell that in the modern day with modern manufacturing and import-export stuff. And it's just kind of become wrapped up in all of the geopolitical mess. Like literally one of the biggest political stories happening right now is also a Switch 2 story.
That is what I think is very interesting, is that, no offense to America, but a lot of you are still kind of asleep. Not you specifically, but are asleep on what's going on. So here comes the news, and it's saying, okay, here is what a tariff is directly, despite the fact that Canada has been yelling this at you for the past 3 months. This is the new Nintendo. Wow, you like the Switch, right? Oh, here is Nintendo price with the tariffs. Oh no! Now people are waking up a little bit, which again sucks for Nintendo, but at least it's getting something done. Maybe.
Well, let's run through some of the other announcements during the Switch 2 Direct, which lasted roughly an hour. Here's what you need to know about the Nintendo Switch. It'll have a 1080p LCD screen with 120 FPS. Nintendo did confirm that it'll have DLSS and ray tracing. A Civ 7 developer talking to GameFile by Stephen Totilo described it as something like a mid-range PC. Supports 4K on TV. The battery life is a little low. It's about 2 to 5 hours. Here's some of the games that have been announced for it, including some of the notable RPGs. Pokemon ZA is getting a Switch 2 upgrade. There's a Bravely Default remaster. Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming out on it. Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring, Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4. Everybody's nodding. Heck yeah. And a new From Software game called Dusk Bloods, which is a PvPvE game. We're also getting GameCube games on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Pokemon XD and Colosseum, as well as Path of Radiance, that's Fire Emblem, will be among the games included. That's great, because Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is very rare.
Yeah.
And, well, it's actually a pretty robust system, all things considered. People are poo-pooing it a little bit, but it's at least as powerful as a Steam Deck, probably, a base Steam Deck, maybe more so. And it is also kind of outside of where Nintendo tends to go with these consoles. It's a little bit surprising, and it's kind of a premium piece of hardware. Brian, you got to go hands-on with it. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so we started off going and watching in a giant room the Direct together. And I will say that when Dusk Bloods came up, everybody was like, is this a Castlevania game? Like, everybody was just kind of muttering that. And it's like, is Castlevania? And then I saw the hand up close and I was like, that is a From Software hand.
That's a From Soft hand.
A From Software hand.
And then it did pop up and it was like, From Software. I'm like, yes, 1 point.
I thought that it was Castlevania because I had heard that a new Castlevania 3D game might be in development. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, this is the new Castlevania game. But then it was From Software. I'm like, no way. This can't be Bloodborne.
We thought that it was a new Bloodborne. We were going to lose our crap.
That was too crazy. It didn't make any sense. And then we saw Dusk Bloods, and it was like, it's Bloodborne with the serial numbers filed off, just like Elden Ring. But no, it is not Elden Ring. It's a multiplayer game.
Mm-hmm. I love that rat character. It's actually very cute. Apparently, they made it with Nintendo's in mind, saying like, well, we wanted to kind of design cute characters. We thought like Nintendo, they like cute things, and they have this adorable little repeat sheep rat.
So we'll make a rat.
I love it. It's just too bad it's a multiplayer game because I was like, I don't really want to play a multiplayer game, even if it's good. Give me a regular game with that guy. I'll play it.
You play any competitive multiplayer games?
Not really. Not in a long time. I'm just not competitive.
Need to get
What's the competitive? What's the competitive multiplayer game you've played the most?
Pokemon, maybe. I don't know. When I was younger, I used to play. Anyone remember like? God, it was like a DOS, not even a DOS game, but it was like a Star something, and it was not Star Control, but you would fight on like with other people in like a very simple kind of base game. I don't know. I used to play that a lot, but that was a long time ago.
Okay. I was going to ask you what's your thoughts on Night Rain, because that's not competitive, that's co-op.
Yeah.
Night Rain.
Elden Ring.
Oh, I haven't really played that either because it's like when it comes to multiplayer games, like. I really, really try to enjoy them, and I do love Final Fantasy XIV, as everyone knows, but even then, I try to stick to the single-player stuff, because I just grew up playing my games by myself, and the online element simply wasn't there, and my brothers didn't really play with me either very much, and so I just grew up kind of enjoying my hobby by myself, and so I still love my communities with FF14 and whatnot, but I used to play Ragnarok Online.
Nadia plays Monster Hunter with us.
I do play Monster Hunter, yes.
That's true, yeah.
Yes, I do love Monster Hunter.
Is Wilds the one to get into? I've
yes.
failed every time. Okay, I played
that one.
Yeah.
I have failed at getting into every Monster Hunter, completely, except for Wilds, except for Monster Hunter Stories, and being into that. I love Monster Hunter Stories.
If you want to get into Monster Hunter, play Wilds, pick the Greatsword, just get comfortable with the combos. Maybe group up with some friends. You probably know someone who's playing. They'll get you through some hunts, and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, we have all kinds of hunt groups going across various our show and then friends of the show, and then the Discord. Like Blood God has its own squad. So if you're playing Wilds and you're listening to the podcast, we have a squad, by the way, that we use for our Monster Hunter streams.
No Monster Hunter on the Switch too.
Yes.
But Brian, returning to the topic at hand. You got to see the Switch 2. Tell me about it. What was it like?
So it's kind of remarkable that it has such a bigger screen, and it has the form factor itself is so much bigger, but
apparently it looks great too. The screen looks amazing.
Oh, good. Right? Even though it's not OLED?
I was very concerned when I was like, okay, it's LCD, not OLED, but I got to attend a developer roundtable with the 3 guys that were on the Nintendo Direct. And one of the questions people asked was like, hey, why did you go with an LCD instead of an OLED? And it seemed like part of it was cost effectiveness, but the other part of it was it's been 8 years since we put out the Switch 1, and the advancements that have been made in LCD technology have come so far. And it's not like we're just slapping the Switch 1 LCD screen on the Switch 2. It's like, this is a 2025 LCD screen. And it really does look great. I mean, I can't really put a side by side because I didn't bring my Switch 1 to the event, but or even my Steam Deck OLED, but It looks really great. It has HDR capabilities in handheld mode, it makes the colors pop so good. Like playing Mario Kart World in handheld mode, it looked about as good as it did playing it up on like the big, probably very, very expensive TVs that they had.
Yeah.
Also, going back to the live viewing of the Direct, I will say the biggest reactions were probably Dusk Bloods. Like, people lost their mind when it was revealed as a From Software game. The GameCube collection, people were very excited about that. When they showed like some of the newer stuff that Mario Kart was doing, people were like, "Whoa!" when they started like grinding on rails and stuff, and then like talking about like how
Mario Kart World does look pretty great.
Yeah,
it is pretty great in terms of like what I played. And then Donkey Kong, when it was revealed to be a Donkey Kong game, people were pretty excited. But probably the biggest reaction was laughter when they said Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is a paid piece of software.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. We all laughed too on Kind of Funny. It was wild.
Thing that happened all day.
Doug Bowser is sitting two rows behind me, and the room just bursts in laughter when they say paid software.
Ridiculous.
Did he turn around and say, "Are you serious?"
They got
come on, who's buying that?
Yeah,
I mean, I played it, and it's. I wrote a preview on GameInformer.com. It's like it is an interactive instruction manual, and it does.
I pay for it.
I closed out my preview, I think, by saying like it has all the things that like a good tech demo does, but the only thing it doesn't share with tech demos like Astro's Playroom or Wii Sports is the price. It should be free. This should be a pack-in game. I don't care if it's $5 or $10. That just feels like nickeling and diming us.
Yeah, no, they should definitely lower the price, or not. They should get rid of the price on that. That's ridiculous.
I mean, this is their opportunity, though. If they do, in fact, have to raise the price of the Switch 2 because of the tariffs, they could like do what like Pokemon did when they had to raise the price of the card booster packs, and be like, oh well, we have to raise the price of the booster packs, but you're going to get like more foil cards in every pack. And they could just be like, hey, we have to raise the price of the Switch 2, but you can also like, you'll get this piece of software for free. And like, I know it's not much and it's not much value added, but it's something. It's not just like, this is going to cost more money and you get nothing extra out of it.
I agree.
I think that's one of the hardest parts about all this, and especially the Welcome Tour, because I agree. I looked at the Welcome Tour and I was like, oh, this looks really fun. I can't wait to play this on launch day and see what my Switch can do. And then it was like, you got to pay for it. And I was like,
LOL.
Because if you think about like number one, obviously the Switch console and probably the Mario Kart bundle, because if people have done the math, like it's cheaper to get the Mario Kart bundle than to get the Switch and get Mario Kart. And so I imagine most people who want to play Mario Kart are going to get the bundle, myself included. Then you add in, okay, Pro Controller 2. I love my Switch Pro Controller 1. I'm definitely buying a Pro Controller 2. I think those are like some of the best controllers around. I love using my Switch 1 Pro Controller. I love the idea of having two Pro Controllers. I'm locked in for that. Okay, now we're factoring in maybe another game at launch, maybe a Bravely Default one that's cheaper, and then I'm kind of like setting aside money for Donkey Kong, which is the next month. And then do you want the cam, which we haven't even talked about all the camera stuff, which is like one of Nintendo's big innovations for this one, and that's a barrel of monkeys itself. But that's a lot of different things that you're buying that are showing up on day one, and then you're going to say, okay, but also pay us for what is, as you said, like an instruction manual. Like, this is a cool tech demo to show off what the Switch 2 can do. Give us X amount of dollars for it. I don't like that. That's not great. It's not going to make you feel good.
Yeah, like I would much rather. I'd feel a lot more comfortable dropping $10 on Astro's Playroom or Wii Sports than I would Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour.
Yeah. It's in the title, Welcome Tour. Welcome.
That's the part.
Remember Nintendo Land? That was fun.
Nintendo Land.
That was a much better tech demo for the Wii U than
that was a good
whatever the heck this.
Demo. Yeah, and that was a pack-in.
Doing that justice for Nintendo Land.
Well, Nintendo was a pack-in only for like the upgraded version of the Wii U, the black version, like the.
Oh, that's what I had.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, that's what I got too. But yeah, it feels really great in your hands. It's a lot more comfortable, and then when you have the detached Joy-Cons, The buttons
the
on
magnetic
the top,
Joy-Cons.
Oh yeah, the magnetic Joy-Cons. It feels much sturdier, by the way, than the rail system of the Switch One.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I bet.
That's good.
Like I was trying to like yank it, and of course, maybe the magnetism will wear down over the course of years and years. The way the rail system of my Switch One launch model is like completely useless
left
now.
Joy-Con goes flying off at random times.
So the magnetism just degrades to the point that your Joy-Cons can no longer stay on. Wouldn't that be great?
There is a locking mechanism, thankfully, but
Thankfully,
it did feel quite secure. Like I was able to hold it with just the one and shake it a little bit, and it didn't budge at all. And when you turn the Joy-Con sideways, it has those two buttons, the SL and SR buttons. Oh my god, it feels so much better having those like slightly raised, and feeling like actual buttons. Yeah. Because I would actively avoid playing Super Mario Party on Switch 1 because it sucks using the Joy-Con sideways if you have to use those buttons.
Yeah, for sure. Someone, Mr. Sardin asks, do we know if Joy-Con 2 is slow and adrift? Do we get a straight answer on that?
They asked, and they were like,
Nintendo's very cagey about it.
I was going to say, I don't think Nintendo's going to come out and be like, our Joy-Cons, they're drifting, baby. They're going to drift once more. No,
they're not going to say, no more drift. Drift is dead.
Yeah,
they did the developer roundtable, and somebody did ask that about the Joy-Con drift, and they kind of danced around it, but they were also like, we rebuilt this entire system from the ground up, and that includes like making improvements based on feedback to the Joy-Cons.
How
they don't want to acknowledge Joy-Con drift.
How did the mouse part of the Joy-Con feel? Did you do a lot of mouse control stuff, and did that feel all right?
The mouse is cool.
It feels surprisingly good. Like I was like skeptical, like, okay, this will be like a cool alternate like control option. The thing that was most impressive to me is you don't have to change any settings in like a menu. Like if you are playing Metroid Prime 4, you can use the standard controls, and then like with that you press like the left trigger and you just like can aim with the right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then you don't have to change the controls if you want to go to mouse mode. You just flip the Joy-Con sideways and put it on the table, and suddenly you're controlling like a mouse.
Yeah, the sensor just picks it up automatically.
It does, and, and I played Dragon Drive as well, the wheelchair basketball game. And, it feels good, like, rolling the two mouse controllers that way. And then you don't have to, like, press a button or anything to switch to motion controls, because you can lift your arms up and, like, call for the ball. Or like when you're going, you go like this, and you just have to lift your hand up if you have the ball and shoot. You just flick your wrist like an actual basketball shot. So it feels pretty good. The only problem that I had with the mouse controls, I also played a little bit of Civ 7 with the mouse controls, and it feels great that like the left Joy-Con, I just held it normally, and it's like a WASD, and then the left was the mouse, or the right was the mouse. I'm sorry, and then it just felt like I was playing it like a lighter version of like the PC Civ 7, but like. The only problem that I had with the mouse control was when I got a little too aggressive with the Dragon Drive, when I was trying to like really like sprint down the court. Like sometimes I would like I caught myself turning slightly off, like diagonal almost. And if that sensor is not in contact with the table, it kind of loses connectivity for it. So like I would be going straight and I'd be like, all right, I'm driving to the hoop, and then suddenly like I would realize that like my Joy-Con was sideways, and I would turn right really sharp because like I was only picking up the one that was still in contact. That's really the only problem. And I'm sure that there's a way that you can adjust that. Also, it works really well on jeans, like because they were talking about how you can do it on your legs instead of like because I was like, oh well, I don't have a table. Like this is my gaming area behind me. If you're watching the video, I don't have a table in here, and I'm like, oh, do I have to buy a table to play like any mouse games? They're like, oh no, you can just use it on your if you have smooth pants on, you can use it there. So I started trying that with
pants.
Yeah, I don't know what, like maybe
what about no
pants don't work.
That's the most like college student buys a wireless mouse to play League of Legends or something like that, and they're sitting. I'm speaking from experience. I've done this where I would be like sitting on my dorm bed and I'd have my laptop and it would be running League of Legends and it would feel like a jet engine about to take off. Like my legs would start to scald after 2 games, and I would have like either a stack of books to my right or I would use like my leg, and I would just have the mouse on there and just have to make like really tiny adjustments and like turn my DPI way up to like adjust for the sensitivity, but it worked. It functions, and I'm surprised that I mean to some degree I was wondering whether the mouse was going to be an oddity or whether they had like a really specific reason in mind for doing this. And I think it seems like it's just, oh, they figured out they could do this and this might open up some cool ideas. It doesn't seem like it's the big gimmick for this one. That seems like the capture stuff and all that, which we still haven't talked about. But
Yeah.
the mouse is like a pretty cool oddity that I hope opens up more, like both new
It'll be
genres
great for a game like
thriving there.
Diablo.
Yeah, like I want to play Slay the Spire that way. I don't like playing like card games with a controller. I like playing it with a mouse because I feel like I'm placing the
Bring
cards
back
and
Mario
playing them.
Paint, you cowards.
That's what I thought we were
Exactly.
going to get as a pack-in. That was my big prediction, was we were going to get a Mario Paint game. Because it's like, what is the last time Nintendo had a mouse on their console? And it was the SNES and Mario Paint.
I wonder what this means for Mario Maker, because we know it's got to be
I
fun
wanted
that.
that so
So
bad.
It's great
yeah.
for a game like Etrian Odyssey.
Yes. Bring back Etrian Odyssey. We can do it. We're back,
And
baby.
click games, I think, would work really well. Anything that would have used a stylus back in the day, I think really will
Dusk,
benefit.
baby, it's time to come back.
Yeah, let's bring it back, Kyle.
Disco Elysium,
My
I
boy.
bet, is going to feel great with that because I never liked the gamepad controls for the Disco console version, and that was always my thing. It was like mouse always just felt better for that, and so I bet that's going to make Disco
Football
Elysium play so
Manager.
much better.
Yeah,
I mean,
Civ 7
basically-
will actually be playable on Switch.
It just opens up a world of possibilities for like games that just didn't work or didn't work well on console. Like, you know, I love City Skylines, and
Yes.
I think that they did a good job with like the console ports, trying to retrofit those to be like gamepad controls. But having a mouse and keyboard is like the way to play that game. And if I can accomplish something approximating that on a Switch 2, like that's going to open up a whole lot of opportunities for much better ports from the PC.
So
And
we
I
were
will
talking
say
about this.
I was going to say, Super Mario Party Jamboree actually had a surprisingly good use of both the mouse and camera stuff. Like the Nintendo Switch 2
That looks like a
version of that.
showcase for the camera, which is kind of controversial. I do love Hori's Piranha Plant.
Oh, yeah.
That looks adorable.
I'm so excited, like literally coming out of that direct, I was like, I think the Jamboree updates might be one of my favorite things from that direct, because Mario Party Jamboree already a spectacular Mario Party game for those sickos in the know. But I saw all the updates they were adding, all the even just putting the camera stuff in the little icons and all that, but still keeping the characters and all that. I was like, this is everything that I, as a Mario Party freak, want from this sort of update. This looks so good. Very excited for that.
Yeah, so I played 4-player on Bowser Live, I think it's called, where it's like the game show that Bowser hosts that they showed at the Direct.
Yeah.
And one camera, and everybody stands. It's like, all right, player 1 stand in this little box, player 2 here, player 3, player 4. And it does a really good job of isolating each player and then transposing them onto the actual main screen. So like it would be like, all right, here's the 4 players, and it would game start, and then Bowser comes out on stage, and it flashes to like the crowd, and like the players, like the real life players, are in the crowd with like the Shy Guys and Koopa Troopas and everything,
Yeah,
as
that's
individual
awesome.
entities. And then like you have to do stuff like there's like a Talking Flower Says, which is basically Simon Says, but with the Talking Flower from Mario Wonder. And it's like, you know, if you have, it would put like a Mario hat on everybody, on like 2 of the players, and then a Luigi hat on the other 2 players, and it'd be like, Mario, squat, and you have to like drop down. Luigi, don't squat, and then like Mario, don't stand, and like the last player standing is the winner. And then like there's one that's just straightforward where you hold your Joy-Con up, and there's like it's just very like augmented reality. It's almost like Nick Arcade, where it's like they have like there's like the question block above you, and whichever team hits their question block the most wins that game. It's just a very straightforward use of the camera and like the Joy-Con motion controls and everything. But then the mouse stuff, I played all 6 of the games they had in the demo there. There was one where it was like you had like a wind-up car, and so you had to put the mouse on the table, pull it back, and then release, and then it would send the car forward. But at the same time, the other team is trying to cross the bridge the other way, and your goal is to get to the end, and like you could knock each other off and everything. That was fun. There was also shell hockey, which is just basically air hockey. So you're using the mouse like an air hockey.
That's good.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That was really good. And then another one was like it's like an electrified maze, like a real winding maze, and you grabbed them like using the mouse. You grabbed a toad that was at the front, and you have to bring him all the way through the maze into the final part. And it's like Operation, where if you touch it, it goes back to like a checkpoint. And he's swinging all over the place. Like you're like basically grabbing him by the head, and his body is
swinging him into like electrified edges and stuff like that. Like
And Toad makes a terrible noise when he gets electrocuted.
Good. If he doesn't, what's the point?
The smoker scream.
Oh yeah, I do think that there's a lot of great applications that could be done with the mouse and also the camera controls. But from my experience, the most creative were the ones found in Jamboree.
I want to say some nice things about the social features. I think some people were rolling their eyes a little bit. Most of them are core gamers of the type who would already be playing a lot on Discord or have their own and feel disinclined to buy a camera specifically to use what kind of looks a little janky. But I will say this, I'm really glad that there's a microphone in this thing now. That's a really good addition, actually. We've been Nintendo, I used to be on Nintendo Voice Chat. The joke of that name was that it never had voice chat for years and years and years. It would be through an app or whatever. So now they actually have a mic. They have real honest-to-God voice chat. Good for Nintendo. Very proud of you. And I do think that regular people who might buy a Nintendo Switch 2 may find some use for this and may enjoy the social elements. It feels a little contrived to me. Seems hard to believe that people are going to be jumping into it. Certainly, least of all, gamers.
No, but I could see this is basically, I think, Nintendo's always been extremely protective of its image, especially around kids. And I can see this being for kids who are really too young for Discord. This is kind of a safe community for them. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I think Nintendo's trying to do it. Outside of, like, say, this is Mario Jamboree, everyone play along together.
And they did show one application in like an extended demo that they did. I didn't get to use the camera for like any social stuff, like the game chat stuff. But They did show us like an extended video that I don't think they released elsewhere, where it was like showing like, okay, well, you can share your screen basically while you're playing. And it was somebody playing Tears of the Kingdom. And he's like, hey, like, can you help me out? I'm stuck. Like, I don't know where the shrine is. It keeps like beeping, telling me like it's around here somewhere. And the woman was able to be like, oh yeah, you want to go around to like that other side of the hill. And then there's like a well you jump down into. And then you got to like, and I could see the application there. It's almost like the share play that PlayStation tried to implement with like, oh, you can have somebody just join and beat this part for you. Only this is like somebody can actually coach you and you can do it yourself.
One takeaway
I play in New York. I play Stardew Valley with someone in New York, and we play on Discord. And that would seem to be the main application for this social feature, is that we would jump on a camera and play Stardew Valley together. I can't imagine using that, though. It does seem like a little inferior, I think. So
the frame rate of the screen share, I think, was a little jarring, especially to see, because I had a moment where they were showing it for the first time on the Direct, and I think on our live reaction we had a immediate ooh like, oh, that's not running great.
It was kind of bad, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe it's a thing of like the focused, so if you use Discord you have like a focused video stream and then you have like all the other ones and you can kind of swap focus. I was like, okay, so maybe the one that's focused and big is like high, like performing well, and then the other ones don't need to be high. They're tiny, they're down there. You just need the little box, and then when you expand and then they did expand the box to like look at somebody else playing, and it was like, oh no, it's just like that. And so that wasn't great. I do have a lot of questions about how specifically it's going to work, because I think so far from what they've shown, it seems like it's limited to 5 people, which is a choice, and kind of just makes it like, okay, you're basically already playing most games in party. Like if you're playing Mario Party, that's 4 people. So why are you then jumping into a Discord call when like you could just be playing Mario Party? And maybe the implementation there is just like make that easier, make it universal. And Nintendo wants this to be universal. I can understand that to a degree. I'm just like, there's levels of it where I'm like, I think this is a cool idea. I think this is very much the first iteration of this kind of idea, and you can tell from some of the implementation. And they clearly want it to stick because they're giving away for free for a year. They're like, okay, for a year, everybody can use this stuff, and then was it March 2026? Then you're going to need NSO for all this, and I'm going to be curious what the attach rate and stick rate there is, because I think it's novel, but yeah, there's zero chance I'm using it over just like I have my Switch over here plugged into an Elgato that's looped into this computer, and then I use Discord on this computer. So anytime I want to hang out in a chat, talk with my friends, and play a game, I'm going to enter a Discord lobby and then screen share my capture device, and I have now done everything that does. And it's going to do better.
Yeah, but I don't have that kind of setup. Most people don't have that kind of setup. If I am in a theoretical situation where they're like, hey, Nadia, let's play Mario Party, I would have to get my phone and, like, put Discord on that and, like, talk my friends through there, because I don't really want to sit in front of my computer and do all this. So if it's just a matter of, okay, hit the button and now we're all playing together, I could see that just being very appealing at the moment.
My point is, like, the people who want to do that have been seeking out the ways to do that. Examples being, like, I have multiple friends' Discords that I'll hang out in to just kind of, like, play games and shoot the shit. We have Blood God gaming nights and stuff like that in our Discord where people go and do that and they screen share and they'll hang out. Those forums exist already, and everybody who's not in those forums doesn't seem to be seeking those out. So, like,
that's the problem.
If this is directly for, like, people who want to connect with their friends, that's like a niche use case. But I think for everything else, the solutions already exist and they're already better.
There's probably a lot of people who don't realize
hitting.
This might be the first time where they have that opportunity to connect with their friends, especially the younger people. Like, because again, there are a lot of kids out there who their parents don't want them on Discord. They don't really know what Discord is, and if you just have a button, I'm not saying this is the greatest invention Nintendo's ever done. I'm just saying I see the sense in it.
Problem is, it needs a built-in webcam, not an external webcam.
That is a big
barrier to entry. If it were an internal webcam, I could sort of see it happening. But as it is, it's hard to... It is a problem where the core, the enthusiasts, people like me and Eric, and honestly you probably, are going to just jump on Discord. And the more casual players aren't going to use it. They're probably playing Mario. They're probably playing Roblox or Fortnite or whatever. And they're not necessarily jumping into this video chat thing. Certainly not plugging in an external webcam for it.
I think the root part of this, having the mic that is on board the Switch 2 that you can easily open a universal Switch-based voice chat, that's great. I want to be clear. That's the part I like. I think it's all the accoutrement, all the extra parts of, like, you can green screen your face over a screen share and then show your friends gameplay and all be playing together.
Very like Nintendo.
They were showing Nintendo. They we were joking about it because, like, I've watched this direct like multiple times over because I feel like you need to, like, we watched it once for the live and I kind of got it that way, and then I need to watch it once by myself to kind of be like, okay, retain the news, and then I watched it a third time with a friend who hadn't seen it yet, and that third time the friend and I were laughing because it was like they spotlight in on somebody playing Balloon Fight in the middle. So, like, everybody else is playing, like, Mario Kart and stuff, and somebody's down there playing Balloon Fight. Honestly, coolest person in the room. But they zoom in on, they, like, spotlight Balloon Fight, and it's not running well. It's like, it's choppy. And I'm like, okay, I get it if Mario Kart World might have some framiness, but if Balloon Fight is having trouble, this, like, I just don't think that this tech is there yet for what the Switch 2 is trying to do here.
I will say,
I think all that extra is not there yet.
Shout out to Nintendo for not just pretending like it runs 60 frames per second.
Yes.
There is that.
Like, they could have easily just superimposed, like, well-running footage, and then we all get our Switch 2 and we're like, what the hell is this?
They were very upfront about
I don't want to dwell too much more on the social features. Let's return to the price. And so I've thought kind of deeply about the Nintendo Switch 2's price and its position in the market since the actual reveal. And my knee-jerk reaction was to be like, well, games are getting more expensive. But when I think about it more and more, I think about how shocking this is from the perspective of a Nintendo fan. This is a big departure from the Nintendo that we've known for the last 20 years. Nintendo has made its business, it's made its bones on repurposing older technology for a mainstream audience at a affordable price point, and then putting really, really, really good games from familiar franchises on it and letting it buoy it. Nintendo Switch was just a repurposed Android tablet, basically. But it held up for a very long time. And it had the hook, which was being a dedicated handheld. And when I sit back and I think about the Nintendo Switch 2, the more I think about it, the more I compare it to the Nintendo 3DS when it first came out. A follow-up to a very successful platform in the Nintendo DS, shockingly so, one of the best-selling handhelds of all time. And seemingly more of the same, but better, with a 3D gimmick, better GPU graphics power, host of new features, and you're like, well, obviously this is going to be very successful, and it wasn't. People didn't buy it.
Not at first.
And not at first. It took a hardware refresh, an ambassador program, a price drop right at launch. Within a year, they were dropping the price on that thing to get into people's hands. And some of it was that the launch lineup was really weak. It was really, really, really weak. It was terrible, actually.
It didn't pick up until Mario Kart was
Mario Kart 7 and New Super Mario Brothers 2 and Pokemon. Arguably,
the killer app early on was Ocarina of Time 3D, and that that's an N64 remake.
It was remakes.
Yeah. But the fact
was
you had
updated
that on the go was pretty cool.
Remasters. Yeah. And what are a lot of the games that are being touted on the Switch 2? Updated remasters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you also have Mario Kart out of the gate and Donkey Kong right behind it.
Here's the thing. Yeah. Nintendo Switch. Let's rewind time to 2017. I'm playing my Ocarina. We're going back. Out of the gate, we got a generation-defining game in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. A game that everybody had to play. And then it was followed up by Super Mario Odyssey. And Splatoon 2 came out that year.
Yeah.
And Mario Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
And then a host of really good indie games as well, which was the secret sauce for the Switch, I think. And it became a must-own device right away because it felt so complementary to the PS4 and the Xbox. You're like, wow, I'm getting so many great experiences on this. The Switch 2 no longer feels complementary. It feels like it's trying to compete directly with the PS5 and the Xbox in its own terms as a dedicated handheld. That feels like a lot.
I will say,
like a lot for Nintendo.
We didn't know much about Mario Odyssey until a follow-up direct. We just saw that little tease originally.
The 3 seconds of.
I honestly think after the Switch 2 launches in early June and we get through Summer Game Fest, Nintendo will have a summer stream. They always have a June or early July direct, and that will fill out the rest of the year. But I'm not saying it's going to be 2017 because 2017 Nintendo was one of the greatest years of any publisher or platform holder ever.
Yeah.
But that said, Mario Kart is the successor to one of the best-selling Nintendo games ever. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has sold something like 60 million units.
We looked it up. It was like 65 million. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's very successful. Yes.
Breath of the Wild is my favorite video game that has ever released. So you're not going to have me being like, oh yeah, this is better than that. But there is something to be said about the mainstream appeal of a Mario Kart game.
Absolutely.
Also, yeah, there's one aspect.
It has never been asked to carry a console launch before.
It can though. I think it can. That's the thing.
It's one aspect to push the sales and the attach rate of a console that's already incredibly successful. But I was talking to somebody the other night and saying it's kind of strange to think that Mario, the franchise as we know it, the platformer Mario, is probably not as popular as Mario Kart anymore for a lot of people. I think more people might know Mario from Mario Kart nowadays than they do from playing Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Brothers,
from the movie.
Or the movie. Yes, the movies. Yeah. But that's
the
expansion of it, and I think the benefit that gives it is that now Mario doesn't have to be a platformer at launch to be this big successful launch title. Mario can be a Mario Kart and still have that Mario pull just in a different way.
could be an open world Mario Kart. I'll be honest, I was saying this on our Monster Hunter stream. I am not the biggest Mario Kart fan in the world, but the open world Mario Kart, that just appeals to me. Like, there's something I love about that.
But
I had limited.
Brian, you actually played it.
Brian, go.
So I had limited time with the open world area of Mario Kart World. So I played a little bit of the Grand Prix, played a little bit of Knockout Tour, which Knockout Tour was super fun. And then while we were waiting for players to gather for Knockout Tour, it was like, yeah, just take some time and roam around the world. So I was driving around, there's like an open field and there's like flowers you can bounce off of. And I think there's probably somewhere you can get with those. I didn't have time to like figure out what I'm supposed to do with those. But then there's like other discoveries like, oh, here's like coins that you can collect. And then like I dropped down into like a ravine and like it was like, oh, now I'm just like riding along the water, like on top of the water. And then like there was a star just in the middle of that. And then there was another like big stack of coins. So like it seems like my big thing with the open world stuff is like I don't want it to be like a Sonic Frontier situation where it's like, okay, they're still figuring out, like there's good ideas here, but they're still figuring out how to make an open world. But in that same like breath, it's also like, well, the Mario Kart team is extremely creative. And I want to see what they can do with an open world design and like the ways that they can entice players to kind of take that time and explore. Because like it just driving around for like, I think I had like 3 or 4 minutes with the open world while I was waiting for a match to start. I was like, okay, there are levels and like layers to this world that is like encouraging me to like want to explore more. Like there's pipes you can go down and like reach new areas and all kinds of stuff. So I think that there is going to be something that is going to compel you to just drive around outside of just like, hey, you can have your friends come in and take photos and stuff, which is like the big thing they were showing for some reason. Like, I think that there's going to be a lot packed into that open world, but I guess I could be wrong.
I also want to pose something to what Kat said earlier about like having indies for. I agree that 2017 had some stellar indies for the Switch 1 launch. I think Snipper Clips is the one that everybody thinks of, but there were a lot of games that came out that year.
Was it Stardew the first year?
I don't know if Stardew was 20.
Shovel Knight was.
Can fact check that. Battle Chef Brigade, shouts out. I love that game. I'm always gonna shout it out. But like Snipper Clips is the one I think everybody thinks of because that was a launch day one. That was like there and people could play it right away. Also, I think Puyo Puyo Tetris is coming out on Switch 2 launch day, and I can't wait for that because I love me some Puyo Puyo Tetris on the Switch.
Stardew Valley was out in October 2017.
Yeah, so that's a launch year. But I look at what we already saw in the Switch 2 Direct. Silk Song is obviously like set for this year. That can be a really big one. We have Deltarune, like chapters 3 and 4 of Deltarune. That's an entire like second half of Deltarune coming to the Switch. Yes, Hades 2 is a big one, and like a lot of other games that I think are going to drive people to want to play stuff on their Switch too, especially stuff that feels right.
Silk Song could be a killer app.
Yeah. I mean, Hollow Knight was a killer app for the Switch. It was a game that came out. Sorry, very froggy. Sorry, Victor. It was a game that came out before the Switch 1, was on other platforms, but when it came to the Switch and people started playing Hollow Knight on the Switch, it got huge. So, like, I could see Silk Song having the same response.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see which platform gets the most play. PC could be a big one, for example, but I think being a dedicated handheld is a benefit. I have questions about Mario Kart, and the reason I say that is, yes, Mario Kart 8 sold tens of millions, but it was always, to me, an add-on. It was the game that you bought in addition to Mario Odyssey, in addition to Breath of the Wild. And when I look at...
Nintendo does bundles with Mario Kart. Hey, here at the end of the life. Hey, here's DS with Mario Kart. Here's Switch with Mario Kart. It's almost always Mario Kart. So it's got to carry systems.
But I'm just wondering if it's the game that people will go, I'm buying a Switch for Mario Kart, as opposed to I'm buying a Switch for Breath of the Wild. Hey, Mario Kart. I gotta get that too. That's a great multiplayer game to also play with my friends.
Love Mario Kart.
The normies
go crazy for Mario Kart. I can't fully divest all of the information I have on this, but suffice to say you talk to the normies anywhere who like barely play video games, who do not like pay attention to video game news. Like video gaming is just a thing that happens sometime in their life. It's not like a defining facet of their personality or even their pastimes or hobbies.
Every year.
Yeah.
Or Call of Duty.
It's something that they do when they have the opportunity to do it. They love Mario Kart. You know how many people I have met in my life who are like, they don't play video games, but they play Mario Kart. It's kind of insane when you start to notice it around you.
Yeah, I had a house party a few months ago, and vast majority of them were not gamers. But then they came down to my basement and they saw like all the video game stuff, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a Switch?" And I'm like, "Yeah, can we play Mario Kart?" And that's what we did for like the next 2 hours.
There are two games that inexplicably do this. It is Mario Kart, and I don't know why, but it's Tekken. Everybody plays Tekken.
Whoa, I was gonna say Jackpot.
I don't play Tekken.
I don't play Tekken.
I don't understand why it is, but you don't play Tekken. But if there's a Tekken setup, are you telling me you're not going to get a set in on Tekken? Or maybe Soul Calibur? I feel like that's two sides.
I am going to say that,
coin.
Actually.
I'm bad at
I would
Tekken.
play Soul Calibur. There you go.
I
really do not care about Tekken.
The normies love Mario Kart, and the normies love their like 3D arena fighter. Like for some reason that shit just has universal appeal, and everybody loves it.
I think it's because it's dumb, because you can play Tekken at a very high level, but there's something really dumb about a guy with a leopard head punching some bodyguard.
That's King.
No, that's King. But
That's
King is excellent. King needs to be okay. I'm gonna speak some real truth. People are giving me
just
plus
visually,
plus twos and minus twos.
Visually, I know that he has a very deep and tragic backstory or something.
No, I don't care about that. Who cares about that?
It is funny to look at.
King is the best, and King needs to be in Smash and have an amiibo. I need a King amiibo, and I need it yesterday.
King loves the children. King loves the children.
Eric.
Well, I mean,
Eric flew too close to the sun, is what Chad is talking about.
Off the top, I think that my instincts say that this year, Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong can't match the heft of a Breath of the Wild and a Mario Odyssey. Having said that, there is a truth in saying that the games will define whether or not this thing is a success. And if the games break out, people will pay, or they'll try to pay. I think the price is going to be a detriment. I just don't think there's any getting around that. And it's really taken the air out of the initial excitement for it. So now Nintendo is facing a little bit of an uphill climb, and frankly, so are all console manufacturers.
Yeah, they were just
way.
On the vanguard, unfortunately, for everyone else.
The timing. Yeah.
The other thing that's shocking is Nintendo announcing $80 games. That Nintendo, of all platform holders, were the ones to pull the trigger ahead of time before the other platform holders. That's tells you about the times we live in, friends.
Everyone thought it was going to be Take-Two. They thought it was going to be them. Thought it was going to be Grand Theft Auto, NBA 2K, one of those. Nobody expected Nintendo from the
Nobody
bleachers.
ever suspects the butterfly. But not all games are 80, right? It's just, which one is 80 for now? Was that Jamboree, or it's kind of weird?
Wasn't Mario Kart the expensive one?
Mario Kart, and I think that the Switch 2 version of Tears of the Kingdom, if you don't already own the Switch 1 version.
See, that's what they're doing to us. It's very sly. Like, it's like, okay, it may as well pay for the bundle because you're saving a crap load on Mario Kart there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, Nintendo Online is not the best in terms of connectability or anything like that, but it's really worth it. Like, you get some incredible upgrades and stuff like that. So I already have Nintendo Online, so I was like, well, I'll probably upgrade Tears of the Kingdom, because that's going to be incredible, to be honest with you. I'll do a playthrough of that and other games.
It is incredible in 60 frames per second, higher resolution, all that stuff. HDR. It
must be incredible, yeah.
It looked so good. And I don't care really much about the Zelda Notes app, which is like...
Yeah.
That's so weird.
That's so funny. I love that.
You can share Ultra Hand creations with your friends.
It's achievements in it, right?
It has achievements in it,
It's like a big deal.
Well, but the achievements are like how many Koroks have you found? How many rupees have you picked up? And I was a little disappointed by that. I was expecting something like, oh,
so they're
do
not
something
achievements,
cool,
they're just
find a
stats.
secret. Yeah, it's they call it achievements. Like I had this long
an
dialogue because I
achievement
wrote up
would
the
be
news. And,
like you crucified 10 Koroks and sent them to their flaming death. That's an
it's
achievement.
all very quantitative type stuff of just like what percentage of players in the world are you for having completed all the shrines, which I think is weird because that's a zero sum completion. That's not like a never ending. I'm sure you can probably max out rupees too, but that felt weird to be like, yeah, have you done this? Other people have done it, but people like that, I don't know. I the funny part about the Zelda notes is there is one really, really cool feature in it, and it's voice memories, I think is what it's called, where when you're walking around both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it will now play like new bits of lore voice acted by the characters when you go through there. So the example they showed was in Breath of the Wild going back to Hyrule Castle and going into Zelda's room, and then like the voice memo app on the phone, it like starts playing Zelda talking to you about like reflecting on stuff. And I'm
going to use that.
That's cool, but imagine you're like at the airport and just kind of hanging out and like playing Breath of the Wild on your Switch 2, and all of a sudden it's like,
this Zelda's is my calling room. Me. I used to sit here and play with my toys, thinking about the world outside.
Horses? Do you like horses, Link? I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry.
I think another thing that's changed a lot since 2017. Here are two more things. One, a lot of very high-profile service games have released since then, including Fortnite and Genshin Impact, and that has sucked up more and more playtime as people have moved toward these free-to-play experiences on mobile. And the numbers of people who are playing, kids under 30, the numbers of them who are playing on mobile is kind of shocking, actually. And the amount of playtime that goes to these games is pretty shocking. And yes, these games are also coming out on Switch too, but you can play them anywhere. So that's one thing that is on my mind a little bit. And then also, the concept of being a dedicated handheld isn't as special as it was in 2017. It's one of many at this point. Yes, it's Nintendo. Nintendo's trump card will always be its franchises. It will always have Pokemon. It'll always have Mario and Zelda. But I have a lot of questions, folks. I have a lot of questions about the Switch 2. I think it's going to be slower out of the gate than the Switch 1. Just saying it.
Like it was already said, Brian already said that you can't match 2017. That was just an incredible series of circumstances. But I think it's still... There's some people out there saying like, oh, this is the Wii U. No, give me a break, people. It's not the Wii U.
It's not.
The 3DS comparison is a little more apt, I think, but I do think
3DS was a successful platform in the end.
In the end, and a slow start is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think in this case, if it's maybe it'll start out slower than the Switch, I absolutely see that being the case, but it's not like the 3DS was launched with like pretty much nothing except when I remember I played Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D and I said, well, I don't really want to play this again because I've already played other Zelda games and I played Ocarina of Time to death. It looks nice, but this console coming out has Mario Kart World, and frankly, the more I look at Donkey Kong, the more I really, really want it. So
it looks cool.
It's fun. It was fun.
You played it, right?
The heft of a Mario game? Probably not.
I mean, it does have kind of the charm of Mario Odyssey. I would be very surprised this is not at least in part developed by the team behind Odyssey.
It is. I think it's EAD, yeah.
But I think even Odyssey, like as much as we love it, as much as I love it, it's not the best-selling Mario game by a long shot. So if Nintendo wants to take a risk on anything, like, okay, well, let's take the same idea, put Donkey Kong in it. They want to make Donkey Kong a big guy, so to speak. He's got his own section of the theme park, and lots of people love Donkey Kong. I love Donkey Kong. He's ook.
And he has a newfound like lease on popularity after the Mario movie. Like he is one of the main characters of that. One of the most
kids must love Donkey Kong. Ever. Kids must love Donkey Kong. He makes funny faces. He looks incredible in this game. He's hilarious.
I love Donkey Kong. I don't
Mario
like
Odyssey
Donkey Kong
Mario Odyssey is the best-selling 3D Mario.
Oh.
Okay. I don't play a lot of Donkey Kong games, but growing up, when I would play like Mario Kart, Mario Party, I would choose Donkey Kong because I like that character. I just think he's a fun design.
Cool.
And then they put Monty Mole in those games, and that's now I'm Monty Mole main. But
well, he's better. I mean, come on.
Now you can be Cow.
One thing, yes, Mario Kart World did the thing that I am so happy, and I wish Nintendo would do more often. It dug deep for characters. It went deep into like they had the penguin from like the N64 in there somewhere where he
throw the baby
he's
off
in there
the
driving a cart, and like I'm like, yes, that's what I want from Mario Kart and Smash.
My husband's mad that Rob isn't in there yet, but I think Rob's going to be there.
I mean, there's going to be so much DLC for this game. Like, you've got to think, right? Like, there's going to be characters, there's going to be like courses. Like you saw how they went with like the booster course pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I think that was like testing the waters. Like, will people buy DLC for Mario Kart? Turns out they probably will.
Make a new Animal Crossing, you cowards.
Oh, they're going. It's the second best
lifetime console sales. Nintendo DS, second best-selling platform of all time, even ahead of the Nintendo Switch. It sold 154 million units. Nintendo 3DS, about half that, 75 million. So,
something to keep in mind though is that the DS was pirated to hell and back. So they didn't make a whole lot of money on games at the end. I wouldn't think, at least not nearly as much.
I mean, most Nintendo systems end up pirated to hell and back just because
it was really bad with the DS though. It was like Nintendo.
Don't ask me about my 3DS homebrew.
Yeah, well, it's also like an incredibly popular system that people like love to. I'm not surprised that people would rather spend time trying to make their Nintendo stuff do things versus trying to make their PlayStation 5 or whatever do stuff, because also like the form factor is just always there for Nintendo, right? And that's like a compliment, I promise. Nintendo, if you're watching this is all complimentary. But the form factor is like there for so much of that. I do think that's also where the Switch 2 comes into handy, is that if we think about tariffs and prices going up and stuff like that, I am going to be surprised if Nintendo is the only one that bumps their prices up. I think it's going to have
everybody's bumping their prices. Yeah,
it's going to have cascading effects. So we talk about like the oof of Nintendo potentially going up to a $500 or $600 price tag. You don't want to see where that PS5 Pro's going. It's going into the stratosphere. And so I think in that regard,
I'm just going to be trying to buy groceries soon, let alone a Nintendo Switch too.
Yeah.
I think it still ends up weirdly being positioned as the more cost-effective measure. It's just that the price of,
if you think about it, it's cheap,
going up. Yes.
I mean, everything is this is going to impact every facet of our lives, whether you're buying a Nintendo Switch 2 or a new car, which is unfortunately what my partner has to do because some guy totaled her car. So
that sucks.
So it is going to definitely impact every, unless you're just like straight up buying like something that was 100% made in America. But even then, it's probably going to impact it because they're just going to be like, oh, well, everything else is going up. We can raise it too.
Yeah, the Nintendo Switch.
Nothing is made in one country anymore. It just does not happen. There's parts that fly all over the place. I want to bang my head against the wall.
That's the case with the Nintendo Switch too. I want to talk more about the RPGs and what it means for RPGs. And we should do that in the tavern. But first, and we'll talk a little bit more about whether or not we, the crew, are excited to buy a Nintendo Switch 2. All of that's coming up. But first, a series of random encounters. Monster Train 2 has a release date. It's coming out on PC, Xbox, PS5, and Switch on May 21st. A Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster patch is on the way with quality of life features, including the ability to change the playback speed on double speed battles and autosave. Thank God. Go check out our review from a couple weeks ago. Shenmue has been voted the most influential game of all time in a BAFTA poll, beating out Doom and Mario. Because it's an open world game, they're going, it influenced GTA. It didn't influence GTA, but whatever.
I almost wanted to make this a longer encounter because there was also Baldur's Gate 3 on that list, which I think is just a little too recent. Just a little too recent. I love Baldur's Gate 3. It's a little too recent. But Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was in like the top 10. I was like, that game just came out. You can't come out all the time. That's like 2 weeks ago.
What has that game influenced?
What's popular right now? What's topping Google Trends?
Sure.
Stardew Valley. Speaking of Baldur's Gate 3, Stardew Valley's Baldur's Gate 3 mod, which was praised by Sven Vinke himself, was DMCA'd by WotC, but has since called it a mistake, and they said that they're working to reverse that mistake. Thank God, because getting Astarion into Stardew Valley,
that looks like a lot of fun.
I keep looking at that mod and being like,
well written.
I want to play that. I want to go play that.
Oh, hello there.
I just want to live with Lysel. What do you want?
You need to harvest your crops, Ishtik.
And finally, ZeniMax has voted to authorize a strike if Microsoft contract negotiations continue to drag on, potentially impacting everything from ESO to the development of Elder Scrolls 6 to Starfield. Wow. So something that is worth keeping an eye on for RPG fans. But let's get back to talking about the Switch 2, which obviously was the big news of the week. There was so much being discussed throughout, but let's focus in a little bit on the RPGs. Some of the games, as I already mentioned, that were shown were Final Fantasy VII Remake and Cyberpunk 2077 and Elden Ring are all coming out. Pokemon ZA, low-key, I think this might be the Secret Killer app. It's going to be much, much better on the Switch 2, I think, in addition to Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4. But one of the games that really caught people's eye was Dusk Bloods, a new PvPvE from Software joint that's directed by Miyazaki. And initially, we all thought, as Brian was saying, maybe it's a Castlevania game. And then we all thought, maybe it's Bloodborne with the serial numbers filed off. No, it's another experimental multiplayer game. Thankfully, Miyazaki has said that From Software is not abandoning single-player experiences. This is just them experimenting and trying new things, which I'm here for.
Fair. But they've always done some weird stuff on their off time.
I mean, Elden Ring was so
excited
successful.
about this? Is this a thing we would play over Night Rain, for example?
I don't know. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so fried. Victor, I'm gonna buy you
exclusive on Switch 2, by the way.
Yeah, the Switch 2 exclusivity is maybe the more surprising part of this, because FromSoft, since Elden Ring came out, I think has been on a bit of a odyssey to just try things, because they've essentially earned the ability to try things. They have now hit the point of luxury where they have a little bit of breathing room and the power of Bandai Namco behind them and now Nintendo and stuff like that. If Nintendo walks in, it's just like, we want to like one FromSoft game, please, and you just get like room to run with that. Like, yeah. And I want to say
they put out a lot of games. I have to say, it's surprising how much
Armored
they put
Core
out.
6, Shadow of the Erdtree, Night Rain's coming out in like a month or something like that, and then Dusk Bloods is 2026. So they've been cooking across all their teams. But I think Miyazaki in the past has stated that he likes games like Tarkov. I think Tarkov was a very specific, pointed to game by Miyazaki, but I am interested in this because initially I think there was kind of a roller coaster of, oh my god, that's a FromSoft game, oh my god, and then it's a PvPvE battle royale to be first last man standing or whatever. It's like, but now there was an interview that they put out. Granted, this is an interview with Nintendo. It's on their site. It's going to be aiming that way. So with that grain of salt, but I like some of the ideas that Miyazaki is presenting of, what if you played this game where you have these character archetypes, you take them into matches, you do stuff, you can kind of pick up roles where you could maybe try to cooperate a little bit more or take down boss enemies together before you get into the battle royale parts, but also you earn things that then unlock lore through the customizations, and maybe you get, like, this is me inventing an example, not a real example that was given by Miyazaki, but you get a sick new sword and it's got new lore about the world and stuff like that. That's very FromSoft, very like makes sense for them. I don't know. Honestly, the thing that's holding me back the most is like, is the Switch 2 going to handle this well? Is the Switch 2 going to do all right with this? Because Night Rain
networking.
Yeah, Night Rain worked. Night Rain did have a little bit of issues in that first launch and eventually kind of stabilized and got going. But it makes me wonder whether it's going to be chill with this. I think because it's being made for the system, that's the target, that it's probably going to hopefully run a little bit better than, say, some other stuff might run on the system. But I like the world. I like the concept. I think it's a really cool idea. And FromSoft is a company that I do think has like earned some degree of let them cook. You know, I agree. I think every time they get to cook, they get to come out with something interesting. I'm just saying, if you're going to experiment, FromSoft, Kingsfield is right there. Kingsfield is,
like that
sitting there.
Character. We were talking about this in the pre-show about how they wanted to make a character for Nintendo, and they thought, well, let's make something cute. And they have that rat with wings, and I think that's adorable. I love that character already.
So Nadia's fixated on the rat with wings.
Really are. You're rat baxing over here.
I totally am. I'm on board. Like FromSoft, even when I don't like playing their games, they always had like some of the best lore and character designs in the industry. Yes. Yeah. So if anything else, like I could follow along for that reason. I could be compelled to play the game for that reason, but we'll see.
A lot of those characters they showed in the trailer looked really, really sick for sure. Yeah. I like the dude in the big like steampunk like Iron Man suit, and then he just like T-poses and starts flying, and like in my head I heard what's his name doing the Tony Stark built this in a cave with his bare hands. Like he's just like Iron Manning out. Yeah.
It will have character customization, which some people were reacting to favorably, I think, because Elden Ring Night Rain has pre-cooked character archetypes. So it does seem a little different. So from what I'm able to gather, the way that the flow of the game works is that you start in a hub and then you go into matches with this character. Maybe it's an archetype that you customize to some extent, and then it's a last person standing. You're playing against other people. I think it's 8 players in this game, and it's described as PvPvPvE. So it seems like there will be dangerous monsters and things to find. You can be in a situation where you run into somebody and you end up fighting a boss, and maybe you try to snipe them as well while also fighting the boss together. But maybe there will be reasons to cooperate in this world. So it'll be fun, I suppose.
I think what's really potentially exciting about this idea is they showed in the trailer, there's like a moment where a character is looking at basically a Majora's Mask style moon, like a giant just stone face that's peering down at them, and it was very Bloodborne. And Miyazaki pointed to that in the interview and said, we want to have world events that kind of shake up your normal matches, and that was an example of one of them. Is like big stone face shows up, probably some bad things are going to happen after that, and it's never going to be good news when the Majora's Mask moon shows up. And
you ever known a face like that to be good?
I've played a decent number of these PvPvE type games, and I think that always ends up being one of the X factors, is what's the variety from match to match, and how can the world evolving kind of make things a little bit more exciting. And if anybody's going to come up with some weird shit to go down in the middle of a match, it's FromSoft. They're going to have some crazy things. Can you imagine, you get into like, you're in a match and then like all the what are they from Bloodborne? The ones that were like hanging on, but you can only see them after you kill Rom, the amygdalas or whatever, the like creepy monsters that start showing up halfway through the game. You like have that start happening where it's all of a sudden like, oh, there's a nightmare tentacle monster there that wasn't there before. Oh no, that's bad. This is bad for me and my ability to win this battle royale. Like I would love that. I think that would be really, really exciting. The Yoko Taro world notable event is very funny.
It feels notable that Miyazaki himself is directing this one and not one of his disciples who have worked on. He has a great pipeline of talent at that studio, but Miyazaki is very busy these days running a whole studio, so it feels very notable when he steps in and personally takes the reins. So,
and I had a chance to talk with him at Summer Game Fest last year.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was primarily about Shadow of the Erd Tree, but yeah, I took the opportunity to just kind of trace the entire history of the Souls-like genre with him, and basically I talked to him about like the future of the Souls-like genre. He's like, I think with like games like Sekiro and Elden Ring, we're really starting to get to like where I've always envisioned this like genre would go. But there is one like more level that I could see it going. And I was like, okay, well, I wonder what that is. And I think we're maybe starting to see that with like Night Rain and Dusk Bloods. I'm still not used to that name.
Dusk Bloods?
Dusk Bloods.
It sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie. I don't know why.
It sounds like the intro to The Simpsons.
Probably because there was a Tarantino movie called From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, that's probably
I watched
it.
that.
Yeah.
That was a movie, all right.
That wasn't.
But yeah,
that really threw me off. Not going in completely sight unseen, not knowing what I was watching, and I'm like, they're all vampires now. Okay. It's a spoiler. It's about vampires, folks. Anyway.
And so is Dusk Bloods, apparently.
Yes, it's all vampires. Yeah. We love vampires.
It's all vampires.
Mm-hmm. Looking at some of the other RPGs that are on the Switch too, we're getting several older ones. I already mentioned Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cyberpunk 2077, and Elden Ring. Cyberpunk will be an interesting case because it runs pretty well on the Steam Deck, actually, and takes advantage of a lot of the AI upscaling technology that is available on there. FSR 3.0 and FSR 3 or 4, I think it's 3, are on it. And then you also have various DLSS and a whole lot of other things that actually make it run really well on that platform. So I actually expect Cyberpunk 2077, which, by the way, go check out our Pantheon episode, which just came out, to look really good on it. Maybe it'll chug on Dogtown. We'll see.
It from what I could tell, it didn't look quite as good as like a PS5 version of Cyberpunk 2077, but I think it looked maybe slightly better than like, the crappy like Xbox One PS4 version.
Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah.
But like I think the mid-range PC thing that the Firaxis guy told Steven Totillo sounds like it would be in line with what we're getting from Cyberpunk 2077.
Nintendo made a big show of having a lot of major third-party developers, but when you take a step back, you go, "Oh, a lot of games in this thing were just old games that are already
Switch
out."
2, though. That was, I mean, when I say Switch 2, I mean the Switch original. Like the first game they showed was Skyrim. So
we also haven't talked about Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, which I'm very excited for. Like
I'm excited for that.
I'm so happy that Nintendo is just letting Koei Tecmo run wild with that stuff, because I was going into this being like, I want a new Warriors game. I still want Mushroom Kingdom Warriors. I'm telling you, I think that one would go off like crazy. It's the second amazing. You say it, you can picture it of Mario running through, and there's the castle in the distance. You got like hordes of Goombas, and you're punching all of them and shooting fireballs through them, and it's perfect. Like, make that Koei Tecmo. But like Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, I think is like a really smart choice for them to go back to the Hyrule Warriors, which has worked so well. Zelda's like arguably one of the most popular Nintendo franchises at this point. It's definitely in the big three of Nintendo franchises, and I think the choice, the era, the subject material they're going to work with could be very, very good. I think that's going to be a really strong holiday game for the Switch too.
Two things are true. I hate Musou games. I love Tears of the Kingdom. And I want to play as Zelda.
Those are three things.
I have a major conflict.
Now 4 things.
Three things are true. 4 things are true.
Also, minor correction earlier. Dusk Till Dawn was a Robert Rodriguez movie that I think had Tarantino.
But Tarantino was involved in it.
Yeah, Tarantino was. Yeah. But to be clear, for those at home,
he was like a producer, I think.
Yeah,
so it's not a Tarantino movie, but I associate it with Tarantino.
Not to derail, but number one, Kat, I just don't think you've played the right Musou yet. I think you got to play the right Musou.
Persona 5 Strikers.
They're all boring. Just hacking and slashing through hordes of enemies.
Origins was so good. Origins was very good.
And the performance is always kind of bad, actually. And there's no weight to the actual attacks, so it's not that satisfying to me.
You don't wait. You want to cleave through it like a hot knife through butter. You want to slice.
But it needs to be satisfying. I don't want to turn my brain off. I want to turn my brain on. I want strategy, man. There's not enough strategy in it.
So brain number one, there are some that do have strategy. Like the Fire Emblem ones have some pretty cool strategy element stuff to it. But the brain turn on when you're going through and you're slicing through all these hordes, and all of a sudden you lock eyes, and there's Gan Ning from Wu, and he's like here to mess you up. He's like, I'm coming for your commander, and you're like, not if I have anything to say about it. Shu will emerge victorious on this day. And then you and it like gets all exciting. You start locking, and that's what the Origins is really good about. Dynasty Warriors Origins, play it. It's a good game. It's a very good game.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, is if they do that with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, that's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited about this. The Warriors games have been getting very good year over year.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully they don't
do Tecmo has a great...
Calamity. Yeah, they copped out with Calamity. So I really don't want... I don't think they would this time around. The story's completely different than the nature of the story, but it's definitely like a part of the story for Tears of the Kingdom that I'd love to see filled out. It's a big part of Zelda lore. When they mentioned it,
I'm curious if it ends up being canonical, because that was the whole.
That's
thing
why I'm saying the cop out. Yeah. Like I think it will.
Yeah,
like I think
it'll be canonical. They said it was a prequel, or was the other story?
Yeah, but they said that about Calamity too.
Yeah.
No, it's basically like when you play Tears of the Kingdom, you have.
They've said it's canonical. Okay, Chad is saying that they have said it's canonical. Okay.
Okay, good. So I guess we're not the only ones who are like, yeah, you copped out.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be playing it, but it looks better than your standard Muso game. Nadia, can you react to Deltarune chapters 1 through 4 for me?
I keep telling you that I don't like Deltarune. This is like the third time you've asked me.
I'm the Deltarune sicko.
Nadia, why do you hate Deltarune?
I don't hate it. It's just here's something interesting about
Nadia,
it.
Nadia, what the heck?
Tony Fox has
everything is like, I thought you loved Deltarune.
No,
We've been through
just
this multiple times.
I love Undertale so very much that I just don't want a parallel story to it. It just doesn't work for me, and it's just that special to me. The original one, I acknowledge that lots of people love it. Great game. Toby Fox is enormously talented. I just don't want to see Toriel again in this context, and it's not as good. It just. I don't.
Nadia, you made a liar out of me. I was
going. This to you.
Because Nadia lost this game.
Kat, we can't stress this enough. We have said this multiple times.
I might give it a try again. It looks the next two parts look great, but I was never a fan.
Kat, like, you've never told me this before, and then like smash cut to every time it's happened in the past. No,
what if I have a right on you for calling you a Jew? Jew. I can do that because I'm Jewish, but that's one of my favorite South Park. What if I have a right on you for being a Jew? Jew. Anyway, go on.
Deltarune, like I like Deltarune, and I think it does some cool stuff with the idea of having a party in those systems, and also like. Generally, it feels a little bit more playful and experimental, the way that you would expect something that's kind of a successor to Undertale to feel. Like there's kind of an experimentation with what those systems can do, what those characters can do, how you can move around a little bit differently. I am ultimately curious, because obviously a big part of Undertale is the different routes and how those inform the story. I'm really curious to see how that pans out when you're doing this sort of episodic release schedule. Chapters 1 through 4 are going to be out. So 1 and 2 are already out. 3 and 4 come out on June 5th alongside the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. At that point, it's going to be one full paid game, and you get free updates after that to get more chapters. But I am really curious to see how that makes the whole game feel when Undertale was such like a complete singular package. Does the episodic nature change it much?
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for him to finish it.
Has been a little while.
Just 3 more, right?
It feels like a Telltale game at this point, where it's like, I'll just wait for episode 5 to come out, and then I'll play the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll play it at some point. We'll see. And then, because we're an RPG podcast, Bravely Default, it's getting remastered. It still looks like a 3DS game, but this game, Bravely Default 2, rules. And I say, I cannot stress this enough, you should support Bravely Default, because we want more Bravely Default. So it's a great thing to see this thing on the Nintendo Switch too.
It's budget price too, which I think the budget pricing, or the quote unquote budget pricing, it's like what, $40 or something like that. It's $39.99 or $49.99. It's like priced really good to be that. Okay, I've played Mario Kart. I want something, as Lance said, I want something a bit meatier, but I want something that's going to give me something to play on my RPG grind on Switch 2 for a bit. I think it's going to slot in really nice as like the follow-up game for a lot of people.
Were there any RPGs that we were expecting to see but did not see during this direct? I have one.
I thought Baldur's Gate.
I have two, actually.
Yeah, I thought Baldur's Gate was going to show up. Yeah,
especially with the mouse functionality.
Yes, yeah.
Big surprise. Yeah, mouse functionality would be really good for that game. I've heard it's in development for the Switch too, so I think it's going to happen.
I mean, we're going to get more directs.
Might be a later announcement or something.
Yeah, I think this summer we're going to hear about a new 3D Mario game. We're going to hear about Baldur's Gate 3 coming, or maybe we just see that Summer Game Fest proper, where it's like...
Hey, Summer Game Fest, you're going to probably do some stuff.
They come out and say, hey, we're bringing Baldur's Gate 3 to Switch 2, and then everybody cheers, and then...
Yeah, that seems like an SGF thing.
$700.
God. And I was expecting to see Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, maybe? It's a little surprising that
wasn't there.
Actually,
it's a little surprising that Remake is coming out, but not Rebirth.
I was expecting either Metaphor or Persona 3 Reload.
Metaphor Reload, yeah, from Atlas.
Metaphor would have been a big one.
Because
we're missing the Persona games.
Raito was in that at some point, right? Like Raito was in the Switch 1 Direct as well, but I think it like showed up again in the Switch 2. Yeah,
it did. Yeah,
it's weird that that's one you put forward.
Yeah, I heard ahead of time that Sega was going to be at this event that I was going to, and I was just like, all right, so is it Metaphor or Persona 3 Reload? And it turned out to be neither. It was Yakuza 0.
That was a bit of a surprise.
It was. But I mean, hey,
yeah,
my
just
favorite
put
Yakuza
all the Yakuza games on there.
They're all going to end up there eventually.
By the way, Yakuza 0 dramatically expanded? Like 26 minutes worth of new cutscenes in this one?
Isn't it from the Japanese version? Because didn't they cut a lot of that out for the US release?
Really?
I'm not sure, actually.
Interesting.
2017 is when Yakuza 0 came to the US.
Either way, it's like, if you haven't played one of the GOATs, again, 2017, an incredible year for video games, and that was one of the first games to kick it off. That's a GOAT right there. Yakuza 0, an incredible video game. You should go play it.
Yes.
Good entry point.
Mm-hmm.
Blood God fans will know that that's on my list of shame. That was the game that I tried to get people to vote for, but they chose Vagrant Story instead because the Square Enix game is always going to win.
It always wins.
I could have been playing it on Switch too, folks.
Speaking of, I was a little surprised to not see at least like one more Square Enix game. Not saying that it needed to be the FF9 remake or whatever, but I was outside of Bravely Default. I expected a somewhat stronger push, and I wonder if again this is a case of there's more that we just don't know about that's going to kind of trickle out over time, because Square has been collaborating with the Switch for a while. There was that list of games that weren't compatible with the Switch 2, and I think for some reason Harvestella was on it. I need to double check that. I'm gonna fact check myself right now, but I think Harvestella was on there. I was like, what's wrong with Harvestella?
Everyone wants to piss on Harvestella. I'm tired.
From what I understand, all of the Switch 1 games are going to be emulated on Switch 2 because they had to rebuild their infrastructure. So if you look at like the Nintendo.com graphic, it's like for first-party Nintendo games, like the bar graph is like almost all of them work, and then there's like a little sliver, and that's like Nintendo Labo because the Switch screen size is different. Go ahead, Eric.
Harvestella is on the list. Nintendo Switch games that start up on Nintendo Switch 2. You can boot that thing, but include some in-game compatibility issues. It's on that list.
I'm sure they can crack that though at some point.
I hope so. It's Harvestella. Do it for them.
Do it for
makes me think of when Makes me think of when the PS3 came out and the original PS3 launch version was fully hardware backward compatible, and then they started cutting costs, and one of the first things to go was backwards compatibility. They initially went to a software version of backwards compatibility, and then they just cut it entirely. R.I.P. Very sad. What do we think the Switch 2 will mean for RPGs going forward? So many years ago, Nadia and I reacted to the reveal of the Nintendo Switch back in 2016. It was a big deal, and we talked a lot about its future and what it can mean. And one of the things I said was, I think that at this time, the Wii U was the dying embers, the Vita was dying embers, the 3DS was, it was around, but it wasn't a great replacement. So Japanese developers, to some extent, were looking for a real home, and they found one with the Nintendo Switch. And so I ask, what is the Switch 2 going to mean for RPGs going forward, if anything?
I think that it's just going to be like, a more widely supported out of the gate home for these things, and also more powerful, so there's less parity with the versions that we see on PC or other consoles, because you have to remember, like, the Switch was coming off of the disaster that was the Wii U, so a lot of third parties kind of jumped ship, and Nintendo did win them over the course of the last 8 years. So they are still going to have a lot of that support, and I think we've alluded to a few times here, they're going to start announcing those more and more as the rest of this year progresses. I don't know if it's going to mean anything super seismic in terms of like giving them this is our new favorite home, because handheld and hybrid consoles are more common now. So to offer that as still probably the main thrust of like why the Switch 2 is cool, it's not as novel as it was back in 2017, but I do think that this is a good thing. We saw Marvel's Midnight Suns was canceled for Switch because it just probably was almost impossible to get that thing to run in any kind of presentable state on the Switch 1. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of those higher end RPGs and strategy games start making the leap over to Switch 2, and it's not going to be like, oh, well, if I want to play this portable, it has to be a Steam Deck. I think it's just going to give another home and a more powerful place for these handheld versions.
I agree with all that. I think, like Brian is saying, that you have the Switch 1 as this springboard, right, for RPGs moving forward. That the Switch 1 became the home, I think, for a lot of RPG players, especially folks who like a wide swath of RPGs and weren't necessarily looking to play the most high fidelity, let's say like a Bethesda game like a Starfield, but they were looking to play pixel remasters, and they were looking to play whatever Square and Falcom and other companies like that were putting out. It became a home for it. I think even like Trails in the Sky First, kind of syncing up pretty well with all this, and being a game that I imagine a lot of people are going to be really eager to play on their Switch 2, is going to sync up quite well. But I think my question ends up being, how is Nintendo going to support all of the RPGs in the mix and not just the big name RPGs? Because we've seen the frequent collaborators so far, right? Like the Square Enix, the Capcom, the Koei Tecmo. But Deltarune was a nice thing to recognize, and I think that was a good recognition, especially of a developer that has become, I think, very much part of Nintendo's recent history. That's a weird oxymoron. Part of Nintendo's current legacy. Dobie Fox is a big part of Nintendo at this point with all the Pokemon help and all that. So recognizing that much and putting Deltarune in this direct was a good start. But I want to see hopefully some eShop changes to like help RPGs get more out there. Also, the eShop just running better would be great. But I heard someone asked about it. Was it Danny that asked it?
I didn't. Yeah, it was Danny Pena.
Yeah.
But I think it was the producer was like, don't even get me started on this topic, because I will not shut up about like the changes and improvements that we needed to make to the eShop. We're not going to talk about it now, but like, yes, we did like address the eShop was pretty much his answer.
Well, good.
I know.
And maybe moderate the content that's going on there.
R.I.P. Hentai Heaven.
Yeah. Lance Hart put that out there too. That like there's, especially over the last couple of years, there was a flood of either games that outright were just called like hentai golf and stuff like that, or were like super hot idol max 30,000. Can you date them? Clothes off.
Golf.
To the moon.
Golf.
Yeah, golf.
Are you just looking at my play history right now?
Yeah. Don't look at my Steam hours. But it's I would love to see better features for surfacing that stuff, because the Switch 1, the Switch 2 are such good form factors, are such good platforms for not just the high end. I totally agree that seeing stuff like Midnight Suns be more comfortable on the Switch 2, be able to launch on the Switch 2 in places where the Switch 1 couldn't handle it, that's very exciting to me. Like, and Cyberpunk being on Switch 2 is bonkers to me. Somebody that's been playing Cyberpunk on my PC. But honestly, the RPGs I'm going to play on my Switch, they're going to be tactics games. They're going to be smaller end stuff. I picked up one the other week that I haven't started playing yet, but I'm going to shout the name out because it looked really cool, and I want to highlight an indie RPG while we have the spot. Arafel looked really cool, and I was just trying to spend all my platinum points before they go away, or my gold coins before they go away.
Gotta do that.
Yeah, do that. And that's the beauty of the Switch, is finding just like a little something different and putting it on there and trying it out. And I want to see more support for that from Nintendo's side. Yeah, Dark Deity 2, another great example.
I think that maybe I'm wrong about this, but it feels like specifically focused in on RPGs, Nintendo itself seems a lot more involved in the genre than it did at the start of the Switch life cycle.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Shout out to EA, actually. We kind of glossed over that. EA kind of front and center. We're sorry,
EA finally came out. We're like, we're here.
Well, they're putting Madden on it. Where's NHL, folks? Just saying.
Where's the Mass Effect Legendary Edition? EA.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it?
That would rule on Switch 2.
You can't tell me that, like, you've got to have that much sense. Come on. You're selling that thing for $5 on the Steam store every other week.
I think we'll start seeing a lot more third-party announcements. I think there's a lot more third-party announcements to be made, and I think they'll be happening during SGF, during the Switch Direct. So that's one thing that we should keep in mind. Is for RPGs themselves, I think a lot of the focus on Switch 2 will be around Nintendo's RPGs.
That's what I think.
We'll get a new Fire Emblem 3 Houses. We'll get Pokemon Gen 10. That'll be really big because I think Pokemon isn't exactly going away. I'm literally playing a mobile game that is generating just an astronomical amount of money by itself right now. But the actual mainline games, Gen 9 wasn't that good. Just putting that out there.
Farm good, but it was a good game.
Yeah.
It's getting a free upgrade on the Switch too.
See, unfucked editions. I told you the unfucked editions are coming.
Sales were great. The game itself wasn't that good. So I do think it has a little bit to prove on the Switch too, and we'll see. But yeah, I think a lot of the main storylines around the Switch 2 will be around those. I think we'll continue to see Japanese developed RPGs coming out on it. And I think that we're getting Cyberpunk now. I do not think those kinds of games will continue to come out on Switch 2 in a couple of years. Like those games will dry up. This is the early part. So, but it's kind of weird. The Switch 2 is a little bit of a tweener in that regard, because it's like, well, it's powerful, but not powerful enough. And it's cheaper, but it's not cheap enough. And I say cheap in the relative terms, cheaper than the Steam Deck. So Nintendo's in a kind of a weird place in terms of supporting premium third party, but the strength of the Switch has always been Nintendo IPs and indies, and I expect that to continue.
Me too. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, last question that I have. Are you going to buy a Switch 2? Are you pre-ordering the thing?
If you can. I'm in Canada, so I'm going to pre-order. So I can.
Feels like a loaded question for people who work in games media, because I feel like I'm at gunpoint having to say yes, because that's work for me. But like that's, I do think there is I had this talk with somebody. I was like, I do think there's a price point at which that starts to break. I don't know if that's a certain, like, it would probably have to get into like the 650 range where I start going like, I don't think that price point breaks even for me. But yeah. I do think the higher it goes, the harder it gets. And that's for somebody who's going to potentially get work for the next several years off of a piece of hardware. For somebody who's just buying it to play Mario Kart, I think that break point's much lower. And so I will say that barring any unforeseen catastrophic circumstances, I'm buying a Switch 2. I do think if the price goes up substantially, I'm going to meter how much I get for it. And I think that might end up being the ultimate reaction, is that people who might have gone in for Mario Kart World and then bought a bunch of extra stuff might just go in for Mario Kart World and the Switch 2 camera, the Switch 2 Pro controller, the GameCube controller, extra Joy-Cons, cases, accessories, things like that. Those might struggle. We haven't even talked about the Street Fighter amiibo, which are for some reason way more expensive than normal amiibo. And weren't Chun-Li. Why have you not made a Chun-Li amiibo yet? Nintendo, please. But yeah, it's I definitely think that even if the console still ends up being a seller and a buyer for most people, I think the higher price point does mean that people might be less willing to dive in. In 2017, when I got my Switch on launch day, it had Switch 1 console in the box, it had a Zelda amiibo, it had a Pro controller, and it had a copy of Breath of the Wild. And that was like Christmas Day for me. I put together money to specifically buy that big bundle, and it was great. And I had such a wonderful day. I don't think my Switch 2 day is going to look like that. I think my Switch 2 day is going to look like getting one box that has a Switch 2 and Mario Kart World in it, and that's it.
Yeah, same.
I think that if I were not in the games media, I would be really hesitant to buy one out of the gate, because I already have a Steam Deck. My Switch will be playing Metroid Prime 4 probably pretty well. It will play Pokemon ZA, probably not as well, but it'll play it. And I think that there's plenty of reason to wonder if this is going to be, kind of worth it in some ways. I would probably be waiting for the bigger games to come out. The game that really going to hook me, a Zelda would hook me, personally speaking. Frankly, a mainline Mario would hook me. Sorry, Donkey Kong.
I mean, I think we're going to get that in the next 12 months. Like, a mainline Mario before June 5th, 2026 seems inevitable.
Does it, though?
I think it does. I mean, by that point, it will have been 9 years since or 9.5 years since we got a mainline Mario game. That's a very gap. Very big gap.
I would buy one for a Fire Emblem. I'd probably buy one for Pokemon Gen 10. I love Nintendo, and I'll be buying one regardless, because I'm literally going to be covering it for my job and everything. But yeah, like if I were just a regular schmuck, probably I would wait. I think, especially with the price, 600, 650. So that's a little tough. How about you, Nadia?
Yeah, I mean, again, I have to. This is a Games Press thing. We're all independent. We all kind of depend on our features and our reviews in addition to Blood God. Of course, I can pre-order because I'm in Canada, which is great. And it's not going to be cheap, but I want to do it as well as I have to do it. So at least there's that going for it. I am looking forward to Mario Kart World. I'm definitely looking forward to Donkey Kong. I just want to smash shit. I think it was Dan Rickard who said there's 4 buttons on the face, and it's just fuck shit up, then up, fuck shit up on the left, fuck shit up on the right, fuck shit up downward. That's all the game is. That's all I want out of it.
I think it'll be fun. Any final thoughts?
We live in unprecedented times.
Yeah, $600 is a lot when I could be investing that money into bottle caps or whatever the currency ends up being when the apocalypse comes,
Nuka-Cola caps.
Yeah. I'm thinking vape cartridges, maybe. I'm going to invest strong into those. You got to diversify your post-apocalyptic portfolio. You got to think about all the different possibilities of post-apocalypse currency.
You got to sort out your vendor junk.
Yeah. Paper clips. I'm gonna have those matches. No, I think the Switch 2 is. I think in a lot of ways, if we didn't have this specter of economic disaster looming overhead, we might be a little bit more optimistic about it. Yeah. I think a lot of the bad reactions coming out of it are because of the world we live in right now, and this is finally the moment where we all have to turn to the camera and say, yes, this is about geopolitics in gaming. This is about like how the world affects the things that happen on your tiny little screen. And I do think that ends up being kind of a bummer, because I would love to talk about how the Switch 2 is interesting or not interesting, but I think so much of the conversation, and even like how the launch ultimately lands, is going to happen within the broader conversation of things that are happening in the world right now. And it's just going to be that way. But I don't know. I'm pretty positive about it so far. It's a cool piece of hardware. I like that Nintendo is sticking to the form factor that it knows to just rock the same thing twice. I think the mouse stuff is really, really interesting. I want a new Fire Emblem as soon as possible to see if I would like using a mouse on a Fire Emblem, because I've never really thought of that before, but that would be kind of neat. And yeah, I think everything about it is an interesting and compelling follow-up. We haven't even talked about, I think the dock looks kind of neat. I like the dock. I think the design of it and having the fan inside and all that is cool.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, having it feel more like a bulky thing that's going to enhance it. I wonder how that's going to affect the third-party market for docks, because obviously there were a lot of aftermarket docks that would be like portable travel type things. USB-C hubs have become incredibly popular over the last few years with a lot of plugins that work that way. So I'm curious how the Switch ends up handling if you try to put a Switch 2 into a normal USB-C hub. Will it not be able to run certain stuff because you need that fan to cool it? There's a lot of questions I have there, but I think it's a cool piece of hardware. I like it, and it's just caught up in the disaster zone that is our current world.
Can I just say that talking about the Switch 2 dock, having Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in 120 frames per second looks absolutely gorgeous. I got to play that with the mouse controller and also the motion controls, and seeing that cutscene. There's like an opening cutscene where Samus like swoops down in her ship and like shoots down space pirates. Then she emerges with the fanfare playing, and it's just like, oh, just goosebumps. But the fact that it is running so smooth, it just adds to like how just impactful it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super rad. No doubt. Well, there will be lots more Switch 2 coverage here on Axe of the Blood God, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot to discuss. I wish that we were talking about it in kind of happier times. In some ways, video game console launch feels a little bit small, but it's just reflective of the world that we live in. Too bad the Switch 2 didn't come out last Christmas.
Yeah,
it would have maybe been a better time to release it.
Somebody made the wrong choice, but what are you gonna do?
Perhaps. Okay, that's it for the tavern. Nadia, take us home.
So this is a short one since we're kind of pressed for time, I guess. You ever play Pictionary with your family?
Have I ever played Pictionary with my family? No.
Now that you say it, I don't know that I have.
You have, Brian?
I have.
How do your games go? Are they normal, or are your parents normal?
Define normal.
Hey, Brian, are your parents normal?
Man. Well, I mean, I have a therapy appointment on Tuesday.
Yeah, I can get that.
No, I think they're relatively normal, if not a little goofy at times.
Yeah. So my family once, we didn't really play games as a family much, but we went to my grandmother's house and she was into games, and we all played Pictionary. And my mother, this is how I learned she actually can draw pretty well, even though she doesn't really do it. She was given a prompt, and she drew a pair of glasses with a bullet hole through it, sitting on the sidewalk. Now tell me, who is that? What represents that? What is that about?
Pair of glasses with a bullet hole through them on the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Was it like assassination.
John Lennon assassination.
I didn't want to say John Lennon right away, but I like my mind went to John Lennon. Okay.
Got it.
Oh, man.
Wow.
She had to illustrate.
That's powerful.
I mean, that's powerful. That's art.
Art is supposed to elicit an emotional reaction from the viewer, and that certainly got one out of me, and just being described. So yeah.
Wow.
And that's really
worked.
good. I'm thinking about it. It's like, I'm not really much of an artist, but that was very poignant. I want to go back and ask my mom about that sometime. Like, do you remember the time you had to draw the assassination of John Lennon, and he drew a pair of glasses with a bullet hole through them, and she'd be like, what the fuck?
That's crazy.
She did it, I remember. I can see it very clearly in my mind.
It's really bad that I went through the Rolodex of like famous people who have been shot, and I was like, how many of them wore glasses? Harry Potter has not been. Yeah, I was like, in my mind, I was like sorting them out. I was like, Harry Potter has not been shot. JFK did not wear glasses. It was like just going down.
I like the idea of Harry Potter instead of the scar. He has a bullet hole.
Jeez.
I'm the boy who lived, but I can't feel cold anymore.
Welcome to Hogwarts. Here's your evoker. Kat, we gotta take this. This is the second stream in a row that Nadia and I have completely taken off the rails. We gotta end this thing.
We destroyed it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. Well done. Great job. And that's it for this episode of Axe the Blood God. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Once again, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodgodpod. Subscribe to us on Twitch at twitch.tv/bloodgodpod. We record this live every single Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Come on down. We post our episodes on YouTube as well, so you can watch us all live reacting to everything that is happening. That's also on Blood God Pod. And there's just lots of bonus content out there. We just put out Cyberpunk. We're watching Freerun. So much fun here in the land of Axe of the Blood God. Brian, you just relaunched a magazine. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Game Informer is officially back. 33 years, and it was kind of snapped into dust for a little bit there, and it is back under new ownership. Right now, we just have our website and some stuff going up on the YouTube channel, but hopefully later this year, we will have our print magazine back. The best way that you can support us at this very moment would be to go to GameInformer.com and create an account. And we'll be announcing more stuff in the near future. So stay tuned. We're very excited to be back. And, I have full hands-on coverage on GameInformer.com of the Switch itself, the Switch 2 itself, as well as, I believe, 5 games that I played while I was there. So go to GameInformer.com and check that out if you are interested in reading more.
We are. Very excellent. Congratulations
Also,
on bringing back a magazine from the dead.
Thanks. Yeah. The sentiment that I keep hearing is like, wait, there's good news in 2025?
Yeah, that was like, holy crap, everyone, listen. We have hope.
Really. Well, go and check that out. In the meantime, we're heading to the Axe of the Blood God post show with the Stars of Destiny. You can get access to that through our Patreon. Go check that out. And of course, we'll be back next week to talk more about the genre we love. But until then, for Nadia, Eric, Brian, and myself, thanks for listening. Happy adventuring.